Hola, Taboo Breakers. Bienvenidos a Taboo Talk Latina Edition. Yo soy Cynthia.
And I'm Jeanette, and here at Taboo Talks, we keep it real, raw, and rooted in our cultura. This is a space where we shed the silence, speak on the truth our abuelas were told to hide, and celebrate the stories that make us powerful mujeres.
We're here to break cycles, reclaim our voices, and speak lo que nadie quiere decir, because our stories aren't just valid, they're necessary.
Today's guest is a woman whose voice, presence, and power have shaped the landscape of journalism, podcasting, and Latina leadership. She's not just part of the media, she's helping transform it.
We are honored to welcome Alicia, the co-host of MSNBC's The Weeknight, author of The Likeability Trap, How to Break Free and Succeed as You Are, and host of the Latina to Latina podcast. Welcome to Taboo Talk Latina Edition. We are so honored to have you here with us today.
Cynthia and Jeanette, I am so honored to have been invited, and you cannot make me cry this early in the episode.
Gosh, the honor is us. Like when you said yes, we were jumping out of excitement. Like, thank you. Thank you for saying yes. It means a lot.
I remember starting my podcast, and I remember how grateful I was to the people who said yes, because when you are building from scratch, you need someone who throws you a line every now and then. So I am so proud of you and impressed and happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And again, thank you for joining us. We know your time is limited, so we're diving right in. But first, before we jump into the topics, we want to give you space to share. For those who might not know your work, but maybe don't know the women behind the anchor desk or the mic, who is Alicia Menendez behind the scenes? What has your journey looked like to this moment? Can you share with us a little bit about you?
What a question. I think the most important thing to know about me is that I grew up in Union City, New Jersey, which is where all the Cubans who didn't go to Miami, they went to Union City. It was the embroidery capital of the world. And that means that I grew up in a really diverse place, like an immigrant community where there were constantly new immigrants coming in and new immigrants moving out. And that forms so much of the basis of the way that I see this country and that I see this world. I have two parents who worked in public service. Like we were always, my brother and I were like it was always imparted on us that we were so lucky and we had so much and we had the responsibility to give back. And for a long time, I thought that the way I was going to give back was by running for office. I then worked on some campaigns and started to see how much power the media had to shape hearts and minds and narratives. And that became really interesting to me. So I got a job on Craigslist because that's how old I am. I worked at RNN TV in Westchester, New Jersey, which is a must-carry station, as a guest booker. I booked guests for someone else's talk show. I learned so much in that newsroom. It was like getting a free graduate degree in broadcast news. I learned what a SOT is, sound on tape, what MOS is, man on the street, and how to construct a story and how to build out a rundown for television. I got my first full-time job in television at when Huffington Post launched HuffPost Live, which was their streaming video service. There had been a woman who'd been watching me when she was at CNN, who'd seen me do guest spots on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, where I now work. And that was a huge leap for me to make that leap into full-time earning a living as a person in media. And I'm cutting out pieces, but like it's on the Wikipedia page. I had an opportunity. ABC and Univision launched an English language station aimed at millennial Latinos. I launched a show there alongside Jorge Ramos, who became an incredible mentor to me. We all grew up watching Jorge. His ethos of journalism, I very much adopted as my ethos of journalism, which is that this is service work and we're here to do service on behalf of our community. And, from there was a period of time where I was at PBS, where I was at Vice News, where I worked at Bustle and launched my podcast originally at Bustle. And then a few years ago, I was offered the opportunity to come to MSNBC, and I grinded it out on the weekends at night, which is really tough when you're a young mom. We had the pandemic where we were broadcasting from our garages. I landed on this weekend show that became like a rocket ship called The Weekend, and now we're on at prime time, 7 to 8, Monday through Friday, and it has been such an incredible opportunity.
Wow. What a beautiful journey.
And has that been something ever since you were little that you thought about being part of the media or being part of the TV, doing everything that you're doing today?
Not at all. So when I was growing up, I am a theater kid. So I either thought that I wanted to pursue a career in the creative arts or that I wanted to go to law school, get a law degree, and then run for office. Those were my two paths diverged. And it took a long time for me to realize that in some ways, what I have chosen, journalism as a form of storytelling, is the intersection of the two. There is a lot of my creative brain that I am able to use when I'm trying to figure out how would I explain this? How would I make this interesting to someone? And a lot of my service brain that I use where I'm like, how do I tie this to someone's lived experience and to someone's life?
I love that. It's powerful.
I love that. Yeah. And you've spoken openly about being a Cuban-American woman who didn't always feel Latina enough, right? That in between identity. We have this saying, I'm sure you've heard it, that we say, ni de aquí, ni de allá, right? Not from here and not from there. So, how has it shaped your relationship with yourself and with the communities you serve?
In some ways, I think of that expression as being the people who feel 100% of their parents' country of origin and 100% American. And for me, that rings true, but it's really more about the fact that because I was growing up somewhere where a lot of my peers had two parents who were Latino, the fact that I had a mom that was not, the fact that we did not speak Spanish growing up in my home, the fact that, I remember like my friend Ana Maria danced in her quince and like everyone was like, does Alicia understand what's happening? Like, is she, is she okay? I always felt like it was that it was a thing that I had to prove.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realize it's like that is just a thing that is inside you and that you have to define for yourself. I think for me, so much of my Latinidad is tied to place. Like, I think if I'd had my same life experience, but you drop me somewhere with no Latinos, I don't know how Latina I would identify as being or feel, where for me, like my Latinidad is shaped at home. Yes. We ate Cuban food, even though we didn't speak Spanish in the home, my grandmother, Cuquita, who raised us, like only spoke Spanish to us. Like it's hard to, we listened to Spanish music in the car. It's hard to capture for folks. Like I remember riding on the bus ride to school, we would listen to La Mega. Like there's like so much baked into my life that it wasn't until I went to high school, I transitioned from going to public school in Union City to going to a private school for high school, that I was like, I'm not living a majority experience. I thought growing up in Union City that like everyone was Latino. It was like, that. So to me, it's like I saw being Latino as being powerful, as having all the same rights and responsibilities as anybody else. And so when I like all of a sudden realized, oh, that's not how everyone sees the world. And that's not everyone's experience. I accepted and embraced my role as a person who could translate cultures, generations. And, there are people who understandably don't want to do that work. But for me, I feel like that is part of the privilege I have, right? Like I have two US born parents who are English speaking. They have college degrees. I got to go to college. I graduated without a mountain of debt. Like that is privilege upon privilege upon privilege that now I have to use in the service of my community.
I love that. That's beautiful. And I want to touch base on what you share because I feel that, especially as Latinos in our culture, right? Like they defined us based on how we look, our hair color, our skin color. Like I can walk on the street and somebody will see me and be like, you're Dominican, you're Puerto Rican. And it's just because of the cut. I'm like, no, I'm Cuban. Oh, the accent. Oh yeah, I can tell. And I'm sure with you, right? You beautiful blonde hair, green eyes, and people tend to go, el gringa, like she's not Latina, right? And I feel that I'm not sure if you ever came approach that, right? But we suffer as Hispanic with that because people feel that it's based on how we look as well. They judge us of where we're from.
My husband had a joke when we lived in Miami that like we'd be boarding a plane or something and everyone would be like, hola, hola, hola. And then I'd get on and they'd be like, hello. Like they just
Immediately knew.
Here's what I would say, which is, yes, that is true. At the same time, I recognize that the bias I experience is nothing like the bias that Black or Indigenous members of our community experience, where it actually feels like a question of safety for them. And so I think both things can be true at the same time, but I also don't think that they are with comparison. And what has almost become more interesting to me, since we are a multiracial, multilingual, multi-country of origin, loosely defined group, is why some of us like really hold on to this mantle and why others don't. And it was actually Julissa Arce, if you've not read her book, You Sound Like a White Girl, You Should, who helped me articulate this in the way that she articulates it, which is you can understand that Latinidad is a fraught concept. And at the same time, my personal experience is that there's nowhere I feel more myself than in a room of other Latinas. And so I have to hold space for both things.
I'm going to look into the book. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
how has the complex identity shown up in your professional journey in rooms that expected you to be either one thing or the other?
What I have found over the course of my journey through media is that very often it has felt as though I was in the room to be a face and not actually a source of information on my community. That I would go into meetings, like I would think of something like a midterm election or an election generally, where they'd be like, well, this is where the story is, right? Some other powers that be. And I would be like, I don't think that's the most interesting thing that's happening in the Latino community. And it was sort of like, yeah, nice. And it's like, well, why am I here? If not for the expertise I have and the fact that it's like beyond my family and friends, this is a community I've invested in. Before I went into media, I worked at Democracia USA. We did voter engagement and registration. I got to travel all over the country in different field offices. I learned what it was like to work with Latinos from other parts of the country who might have a different way of approaching questions and challenges in our community. I have written about our community. I have a podcast about our community. That's why you have me here. You don't have me here to be like, we have a Latina, check. You have me here so that I can help you serve the community that you claim to want to reach.
Oof, fire.
I love that. Yeah.
Wow.
But it is hard in the room when you are the only one. And so you look around the room to make eye contact to be like, Cynthia, you got me? And there's nobody there to make eye contact with, right? That is still, I think, the ongoing challenge is making sure that we are at critical mass and that everyone who's in that room feels empowered to say, I think she has a point. Why aren't we doing the story out of Nevada? Why aren't we talking about Clark County? Like those, you need someone else in the room who shares the experience to boost you. And if not, you've got to find allies who will.
How did you navigate those situations? Were you just more outspoken? Were you persistent? How did you navigate those situations?
I am one of those people who thinks of the retort 24 hours after the communication has happened, where I'm like, oh, I should have said this. I should have said that. And so like, I'm like a big, like, yeah, I'm working on it. But also it's in part, I'm sorry that I thought did that ding come through for you?
No, you're all
Okay,
good.
I wish I were better at knowing what I want to say in the moment. I also, though, have learned that sometimes I pause, I breathe, I don't say the first thing that comes to my mind, and I go back to my desk and I think, how do I make an argument for what it is I want? And part of that argument is if it is helpful like this, is like, I understand why you might want to do X. My concern with doing X is that this station's going to do it, this station's going to do it, it's going to be seen as reductive, we're not going to have access to a lot of folks who are willing to speak on camera, whatever my argument is. And then say, allow me to offer you 2 or 3 alternatives that might instead be better and explain to you how we would do them. So it's really building an argument for why the thing I want to do is in better service. And to your point, coming back to it. Like not being like, well, I got in the room. And I think also I love a sidebar. I love to find a person who I think maybe I could convince or persuade and saying, let's you and I chat because this is what I think we could do. And this is the reason I think it could be so great. And getting them on board so that then there is another messenger who is making the case alongside me.
Yeah, powerful force. I agree. I love that. Thank you for sharing those tips.
Yeah, now let's talk about Latina to Latina. It's become such a powerful space for connecting and storytelling. What inspired you to create it, and how did you feel? What did you feel was missing in these conversations that you kept hearing?
When I worked at Fusion, which again was an English language station aimed at Latinos, I would get to interview all of these Latina celebrities and we'd put our mics on and the cameras would go on and the lights would go on and we'd like hit our little like question, talking point. And then the lights would go down, the cameras would be off, the mics would be off, and we'd both sort of be like, how are you really? And that became interesting to me, that there were things that were challenges and struggles that we did not feel as professional Latinas that we were allowed to talk about publicly, for fear of pissing people off, for fear of sounding like we'd gotten incredible opportunities and we're still complaining about it, for fear of seeming anything short of grateful. And my question was, how, instead of starting the conversation with like, oh my God, you're in this movie version 3. Like, what was the audition like, right? That it's like we could start the conversation with like all the auditions that went wrong before it and all of the casting directors who said no before it, because we were just, I felt, weren't being honest about how hard it is to be anything, to build anything, to be the only one. And I felt that the recognition of being like, oh no, I get you, I see you, was automatically started us at a different point. And I think podcasting is very special because it feels more intimate. You're in the ear of your listener. You are with them on their subway ride. You are with them in the car. Hello to you right now. I see you stopped at that red light. Like, it is a different relationship than you have with a television viewer, where the person still feels a little far away. It doesn't feel like I could DM this person and they would DM me back. By the way, I will, because I'm a lunatic, but that's, that. And then to me also, it's like, I think we deserve products that are high end. Like, I wanted to take all the skills that I have as a journalist and my interest in interviewing and give it to us, make it special for us. And my hope is that there are, and was at the time, was not that we were going to like do it and then be the only one. Like, my dream was Taboo Talks, right? Like, it was my dream that there would be a framework from which then people could begin to build and grow. And a Latina listener, instead of having 5 podcasts, would have 50 and then would have 100. Somewhere in there, given the diversity of our community, would find her person. Because like, I'm not for everybody. Like, that's, what I do is it's very much formed by my life experience, by the fact that I am very professionally ambitious. That is my lens, but that's not every Latina's lens. And she deserves her podcast too.
Wow, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
I had goosebumps the entire time because we can all relate. And I think it's powerful, seeing what you've built and being here with us today and reminding us that if you did it and you're still doing it, we can too. So like, we spoke before we went live recording, and you said yes, because to us, your yes was such a big deal. Like, it is every single yes that said yes since the day we started. But other people don't see it, right? They see it more as like, when you get to a certain amount, then reach out to me, right? And that's where I feel is the disconnection, that we feel that we start placing our worth on numbers. And well, they have millions of followers, I can never get to that level. Or, they've done this, they've done that. And I think comparison is thief, right, of our joy.
100%. I also think a few things. One is, you were starting this at a different time than I did. So the fact that you were doing video is so smart, because so much of this industry has pivoted to video. So I salute you for that. The atmosphere is more fractured right now because there are more of us. But there also, I have watched the boom and the bust of English language Latina media. Like, there was a heyday where there were multiple websites, multiple video platforms, and I've watched it all shrink. And so if you are now trying to reach this audience, there are fewer places to do it. And so what you are doing, eventually people will realize will have a real value. And part of it is like, you came to me so professionally, right? Like, your email, like, all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed, and you were very clear about what your objective was. And I think this is important, because that's not sending someone a DM that says, hey, you want to be on my podcast? No.
Yeah.
Right? It is saying, like, I've watched your career. These are 3 observations I have about you. This is the thing that we are building. This is who we are. Already that says to me, these 2 women have their act together, right? It's someone in whom I see myself, and I want to support them, because what they're doing is clearly going to work, given the time, the resources, and the energy.
That was beautiful.
Now you're going to make me cry.
I know this is emotional, because it reminds us that we're not alone, which it brings us back to what you shared. We don't ask those tough questions. Like, everybody put out there all the beautiful things and all the accomplishment, but we don't really talk about the struggles, which takes me to storytelling, right? Storytelling can be a tool for leadership and community. How has hosting these real peer-to-peer conversations informed your own leadership journey?
I think there are so many great talkers, and I would love to see more great listeners, especially in a management capacity where people often come to you and they tell you their hopes and their dreams and what they want. And like, that is not something that as a leader you can grapple with day to day. But I do think there needs to be a coaching component. My husband refers to it as player coach, right? Where it's like, I will do the work alongside you. But since I am more advanced in my career, I will also coach you in the direction of building your skills, improving, but also moving towards what it is you want. I'm 42 now, so let's say I've been working for the past 20 years. I would have loved for someone, and maybe someone did, and I don't remember it early on, to say like, what do you really want? Like, are we just on this hamster wheel because it's the first wheel we found? Or is there a better wheel for us to be on? Is there something else you truly want? I think especially this is a thing that comes up all the time for Latinas, which in my experience, which is there's so much familial expectation and often so much familial need, especially for folks who are the first in their family to be a US citizen, the first in their family to go to college, that there's like, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an accountant, there are just like a few tracks to be like, we have to guarantee financial security and what we are defining as success. And we as your family are defining it for you. And I think that often comes from such a place of love and wanting to keep your family safe. And I have so much admiration for it. I think the challenge is for folks who want to do something that even for a family who had been in this country for more years or had more resources is seen as a riskier path is times 10 for us. And so what I notice is it takes a lot of the Latinas I talk to longer to get on their true path, because for the early part of their career, they spend doing what they have either been told to do or think they're supposed to do, or what is, let's be honest, necessary financially for their family.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I love when I sponsor another Latina is to really make sure that like she is clear about what it is she wants, even if she can't have it right now, that at least there is clarity that she knows where she wants to head.
I love that. And we've talked about this before, the conditioning of how we grew up, right? Whether it's like, okay, you want that secure job, right? Because that's all that generation knew, right? Entrepreneurship was not a thing for our parents' generation, right?
I mean, I will say for some folks, I think about this, which is like maybe they opened like a little tienda or they had a bakery. Like it's just, in some ways I realize now I knew so many entrepreneurs growing up, but they didn't call themselves entrepreneurs. They called themselves small business owners.
Yeah.
So true.
And like, it just, I think there's a reframe too.
Yeah,
that
and
we're
I don't think
ready
they
for.
took enough credit now that I'm thinking about it, right? It's like, oh yeah, I have una tiendita, and that's it. Where now is if you have a small business, it's like you're wearing so many hats. Like that's a big thing now. So I think they didn't take enough credit. So yeah. Wow. That's a good point. And of course, besides hosting Latina to Latina podcast, we know you are the co-producer of Real Women Have Curves. Tell us, how did you feel in that moment where your brother called you to tell you if you wanted to be the co-producer of the show? And why was it a dream for you?
So I thought it was my brother who was calling me. It was actually the executive producer of the show, but I was convinced my brother was punking me. And because it was too perfect, right? It's like I'm a failed theater kid who still loves the theater and would love to produce theater. And all of a sudden, someone is coming to me to ask me if I would like to live out my dreams. Like that doesn't happen. But it was a dream. I loved every minute of it. I learned so much, which is, I think, one of the challenges of being a person who wants to do a million things in one lifetime, which is I want to be both getting better at the thing I'm doing and learning new skills in parallel while also somehow like mothering. So like, that's like, I'm not sure where all the hours in the day are supposed to come from, but but it's possible. Like, and that's sort of the thing about things that I love doing, which is it never then feels, that's not true. It feels like work some days. There are days where I'm like, I want to go to the pool with my kids. And it's like, no,
of course.
It's a job. I come in and I do it. But the Real Women Have Curves was based off the film that launched America Ferrera's career. Prior to that had been a play by Josefina Lopez. And what the best part was being in the theater on a lot of nights where the show would get a standing ovation mid-show, but then also I would like look right and look left and people were crying because it was one of the first times they ever felt they had seen their story. And it didn't mean that their story was the same story. It wasn't like, oh, I've never seen a Latina on stage before. It's like there's the Latina who's the first in her family to go away and has to beg and persuade everyone in her family to go away. There's the older sister who's taken on all the familial responsibility and is basically like mami dos and like knows that it's like she never got the luxury of pursuing the things she wanted to pursue. And there's the mom who sacrificed everything to, like, so there's even there where it's like, oh my God, this like passes the Bechdel test where it's like there are just three women on stage talking to each other and about their hopes and their dreams. And we don't get enough chances to see that.
Yeah. And it shows us like what we see online is about like breaking those cycles, the generational cycles, because if now we just keep passing it on from my grandma to my mom to me to my kids, right? And I think it's time to showcase more of that. We actually had recently Florencia as one
I
of our
love her.
guests. I
Yeah, she was
know. And then we received your email saying yes, and we're like, this is a dream come true to us.
and it was the same week too. So I was like, all right, we're winning. We're doing something
Yes.
right.
But it's powerful to see that, all of you coming together and showcasing that story because it's not about how we look or, what we're doing on stage is delivering that message that makes us feel seen and heard because we need more of that. So thank you. It was beautiful.
Yeah. And okay, what's one taboo you are still trying to break till this day?
Oh, that I am still trying to break. I'm like, let me tell you about the ones I've broken.
Those two.
I think the taboo that I have done the best work on breaking is the taboo around mental health. Like I've suffered from clinical depression, from anxiety, and I still, have one of those families where it's like, why? What's wrong with you? What happened to you? Like just like doesn't. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're going to therapy? What for?
Yeah, it's like,
It's
as a
like to
joke.
have. Yeah. And it's like, how about if even the only reason I'm going to therapy is to have more tools in my toolbox to be like a great communicator and to be able to process my own feelings? That's worthwhile. But the taboo, I don't even know that I'd call this a taboo, but I still struggle with the fact that I am not fluent in Spanish and I speak high school Spanish, and that that this concept of being Latina enough, I still feel it, and I feel it as like I raise my girls, where I'm like, am I giving them enough of the culture? We have not done the job we wanted to do teaching them Spanish, and like it's pressure and the responsibility, it's still grapple with it, and I probably will grapple with it in perpetuity.
Yeah, and you're not alone because I think we all feel that way one way or the other, right? I feel like that with my youngest, right? My oldest, he's fluent in Spanish. My mom was there. She was able to help me a lot. And then with my youngest now, he's not so fluent. So I'm always in the back of my mind, like, oh, am I doing a good job? Like, he doesn't really know Spanish. He's losing the Spanish right now. He's fully only speaking English because of school. He's 4. So we always have that pressure in the back of our minds. And we do it to ourselves, right? Because no one is telling me, like, oh, Cynthia, you're doing a bad job. Like, Zion's not speaking Spanish. It's just myself, right, in my head.
I'm impressed that no one's giving you shit for it, because I would assume that someone was.
Well, I was just going to say that my mom would be like, tú estás haciendo un trabajo malísimo. Like, you need to educate your kids because that's going to find them a better career. And, they need to learn because I will speak to my kids in English. I mean, in Spanish, they'll respond to me in English. So I'm like, well, they understand. And she's like, no, 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 no. So it's like we're doing something wrong because we're not following the path, right? So I think we all go through that, especially this generation.
Yeah, but it's not one thing or the other. They gave me a hard time of other things.
Without a doubt. Alicia, before we wrap up, we got a few quick fire questions before you chase me. If you could send a message to 18-year-old Alicia, freshly graduating from Harvard, what would you say to her?
Figure out what you want. Figure out what you want and spend as much time thinking about if you want to buy as you spend trying to sell. Meaning I spent a lot of those early years in friendships and relationships, like trying to sell myself and make myself appealing to other people without really stepping back and thinking like, is this even what I actually want?
Oh,
It's
I
powerful.
love that. Yeah. What's one quote or mindset that's guided you through tough moments?
Have either of you seen the iconic film Frozen 2?
Course.
Yes. Very
That
familiar.
too.
That song that Anna sings, Do the Next Right Thing, has been like a mantra in my mind, which is, I actually think it's very simple, but it's very profound, which is if you find yourself in a time of crisis, the best thing you can do is the next right thing. And then you do the next right thing. And then you do the next right thing. And hopefully it gets you to where you want to go.
Love the perspective. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, every time I watch the movie, I'm going to think about that.
I know. I'm gonna think about you.
It's done. Okay. And fill in the blank. Latina leadership looks like.
Whatever you want it to look like.
Oh, yes. Love that.
Yeah, I just think that I think everyone everywhere feels like they're put in a box, but I feel for Latinas that we tend to either get put in the humble, hardworking box where everyone sort of says we're a delight, but doesn't see us as having leadership potential because we are so humble, or they see us as like gregarious and fiery. Like think of Sofia Vergara's character in Modern Family, and that person is a blast at a cocktail party, but that person is not necessarily the person you put in charge of steering the ship. And I think that we are much more dynamic and complex than either of those two stereotypes.
Powerful. Thank you.
Yes, I
Yes.
love that. All right, now real quick, we never skip this segment. You know, La Tia Chismosa, the one that always has something to say, whether it's good or bad. If she can see you now anchoring national news, leading raw Latina conversation, and shaking up the likability game, what do you think she would say?
Okay, can I just be honest? This question makes me realize I am so lucky that I don't have a tia chismosa. Like my tia Cacha is a saint and she like boosts me at every turn, so let her be it. But my imaginary tia chismosa would 100% say that I work too much, that I like need to get home to my man
Love you.
and
My
focus on that.
imaginary.
Also that I need to like put on better earrings and like a little bit of makeup before I leave the house. Like those are but it makes me
100%.
realize that like la tia chismosa lives in my head. That is
I was just
like
going to say that, right? Yeah.
I can hear
Because
what
you
it
nailed it.
exactly it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you nailed it, especially with the makeup. Like you're going out like that. My mom would always say that too to me. Like you're going out like that, and like your nails. If my nails wasn't
Oh my
done,
God, my
like
nails.
pressing
I
that.
thought of it as I was flashing them where I'm like in fact, I was at the Washington DC bureau yesterday and I saw one of my favorite Telemundo correspondents because we still share space with them. And she was like, "You look good." And I was like, "You do not have to lie to me. I do not have a stitch of makeup on. I'm in like mom jeans." I'm like, "I know." I'm like, "I got it." But she was so cute because it was like half coming out of her mouth and then you could tell she didn't really mean it.
Yeah. And you're like, it's okay. I feel it. I know what you're trying to say.
It's like I'm not Gen Z, but I love what Gen Z has done for like wear your sneakers, go out of the house without makeup. It's fine.
I love it.
It's
Yes.
so good.
You can walk everywhere you want to go. You're in sneakers. It's great.
I love being in my comfy sweatpants and t-shirt and Crocs on or sneakers. I'm like, yeah, just leave me in this cozy
That's
space.
it. That's the life.
I know. Can we work like this too? Let's just go on air, right? She's like, no.
No, no, no. I'm
Not
like,
on
don't get me
air.
wrong.
I love it.
I love it. And of course, before we wrap up, tell our listeners where they can follow your work, and of course, listen to Latina podcast or connect with you further.
So if you want to Latina, you can listen to it wherever you listen to Taboo Talks. MSNBC is a cable station. If you don't have cable, I also sometimes watch MSNBC on Sling for my cord cutters out there. Me, Simone Sanders Townsend, and Michael Steele are on every Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. And Eastern. And I'm most active on Instagram because I'm, an old millennial. So you can find me at Alicia Menendez XO. And if you message me, I'll message you back.
You're
will.
amazing. We
She
will
did.
make sure to add all of that up to the show notes. Alicia, thank you for the work that you do, for the truth you tell, and for showing us that we don't have to fit anyone else's definition of leadership to lead powerfully. It's been such an honor to have you on here.
Cynthia and Jeanette, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I appreciate both of you.
Yeah, thank you for being here with us and sharing your voice with our community. It truly just means the world to have you here. And to our beautiful taboo breakers, thank you for showing up and owning your stories. Whether you're in between, figuring it out, or stepping into something new, your identity is valid and your voice matters. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Y como siempre, chicas, we'll see you next time on Taboo Talk Latina Edition, where we keep breaking cycles, breaking silence, and breaking taboos.